Now you're out of your routine, and that was an adjustment, especially since we didn't really use Zoom at Amex when we first started. At least in my team, everything was in person. You had to be there. So it was an adjustment to really make sure that the team dynamic stayed the same, and you were just as effective while also respecting the boundary of work and home, because now it's completely integrated.
Yeah, it sounds relatable. Like me too. Anyone who has met with me knows that my little nephew jumps into my meetings like he's part of my team. So I understand the challenge. What about you, Natalie? There were any particular challenge that you have to with that when changing to this new online world?
Yeah, even though I was in the office only for a few weeks, it was a drastic change because I was just getting to know the team, just getting to know my manager. So being able to get to know them through the online world was pretty difficult just because I'm more of like a personal person and a manager as well. So now being able to like ping them, sometimes you feel like they're because you can't see their faces, but pinging them. And so I think it's also putting like your own effort into like in order to be more part of the company. But it was really hard at first, being that I was new and I was an analyst. I was a bit scared to reach out to them. You didn't know they were busy or not because you can't really see what they're doing. So it's just being able to just go for it. And you don't know what they're doing if you don't ask or if you don't create those coffee chats or happy hours. So it's just putting in the extra effort so they can know like, oh, you're here. You're, even though if you're new, you still want to be present. So it's giving that extra effort so they can see that you're present.
And yeah, it truly sounds like an extra challenge to be new and to deal with all of this. But I'm pretty sure you have figured it out, and we're proud.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of pings and a lot of we use Teams a lot, so it's being like interactive, sending like a funny meme on a Friday. So that goes a long way.
That's really nice. And Eurydice, you're a student like us, but in a way different position. Were there any particular challenge of being a first year law student in this weird world that we're living in right now?
Definitely. One of them I'm experiencing right now. I'm having some technical issues, so if I cut out, please forgive me. But mostly it's sort of like law school is something that I haven't done before. It's something that no one that goes to law school for the first time has done before. And you're sort of lost for the first few weeks. I'm constantly wondering whether I'm caught up, whether I'm actually understanding what I'm supposed to be understanding. Like, of course, our professors are there for us, but it's a little bit different going into someone's office versus like, oh, is their Zoom link open at this time? Like, oh, are they available to call? They have lives too. And then there's also the social aspect where you don't really get to know your classmates.
Does sounds like a challenge and something that I think most of us can agree. I live in the constant fear that I'm missing an assignment or that I'm falling behind on something. It's truly been a nightmare. And precisely because of that, I wanted to ask you panelists, what are the habits and routines that you're following to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you're not working for longer hours than you need and that you make sure you're mentally okay?
So I'll take that one. I think it's really important to put your health, your mental health, and your physical health at first. Because if you don't have that, everything else just won't align. I think just really setting your boundaries of I'm going to work from such and such time to such and such time. I'm a student now, so I could relate with you guys. It's hard, right? You have your classmates that are up at 1 a.m. and they want to do a Zoom call. It's like, you have to have the set structure, but also get dressed every day. At least for me, I like to be dressed up. Because if I'm in my pajamas, I'm not going to get work done, or at least I'm not going to be efficient, or I'm not going to feel well. I like to get dressed up. I like to make sure I'm eating. I remind myself sometimes to make sure I eat. Just self-care that may sound basic makes a world of difference, because when I first transitioned, we had what's called Gabelli lunch in the summer. I found it challenging because now it's really full speed ahead into something brand new in this environment. And what I found is self-care is paramount, and you know yourself best, but exercise the way you normally would, work, just really take care of yourself. Don't neglect that and think, oh, well, I'm at home, I'm relaxing, because honestly, you still have responsibilities. You're just in a more relaxed environment, but you're still working. And I think it's important to realize that, so you can give yourself the same amount of balance now than you would have by commuting and taking a train into work or school.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, continue, please.
Yeah, Deloitte has done like a really good job on promoting self-care. They notice that if your mental health is not right, you won't perform to your best potential. So they're really open on taking PTO, taking your 30-minute lunch break, being away from the computer. Because if you take your lunch by your computer, you're just gonna be working. So they really focused on self-care. And what I've noticed too at the beginning, I did work like on top of my bed, and that is not the same as working on a desk or sitting on a table. You feel more focused if you're on a table. What I started doing, I didn't do it at the beginning, but what I started doing is working out in the morning. That really changed my focus, because if you work out in the morning, you're already feeling pumped, that adrenaline is going. So once you start working, it's like you took a cup of coffee, but you just worked out. So feel like that really helped me focus and helped me perform better and not feel like that sluggish, like, oh, okay, I'm going to work to my room. I just came from the bathroom. Like, it's not the same as like going to the office. So just having that pumped up energy from the beginning, it really helped me a lot. And also what I've noticed that people do on my team is they take walks during lunch break. That really help them like clear their mind. Sometimes they take calls while they're walking their dog. That's really fine. They don't mind at all. So they really focus on like treating yourself first and then giving your full potential at work.
Alvidas, would you like to share with us uh, of the routines and habits that you make sure to stay healthy?
Definitely. See, being a student, like Serena mentioned, it's a little bit different than working. Because when I was working, like working from home, really I had a set schedule. It's like, even if I like, found myself working a few hours outside of my set schedule, it's like I knew, okay, these are the hours that I work. Now with school, it's like, yes, I have the hours where I do virtual class, but then there's homework, there's studying. In law school, it's all about the reading. You're never going to be done. There are no assignments like there are in undergrad. It's really just like, am I studying? I'm working towards the final. So you're never done. So what I had to do is sort of like create a mental commute for myself, where it's like, once I'm done with class, I step away from like the area where I took class, and I turn off my computer, even if I'm going to go back to it like 10 minutes later, just like create that reset in my brain. Like, okay, that was school time. Now it might be homework time. And then it's relaxing time.
Well, that's a really, really good tips. Like I am personally taking notes and I will make sure that I apply it, because I think we could all agree that it is challenging to separate school and studying and just relaxing. So thank you so much, all three of you, for sharing that. And I just wanted to continue with a very interesting question. I absolutely love how Serena mentioned the challenges of being Latina under lockdown. Like we tend to live with our families, and it's very hard not to have a private place. And because of that, we wanted to ask you how being a first generation Latin person prepare you for what we're living on, what skills and habits you learned that you're applying right now that were useful for to help you being successful during lockdown and during these times.
So I've lived at home for personal reasons and just in general, even while I was working. It was always a behind the scenes. When I would go to work, no one expects a 21-year-old to be coming home and then really taking care of an adult, which is what I was doing with my grandmother and helping my mom and everything. Now I feel like with everyone working from home, people see that, and they see that with everybody. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier to mention, yeah, I'm exhausted because I was up all night making sure that she didn't have a fever. This is pre-COVID. Now it's different. So I think I in a way I feel ahead of the curve because I was always in a way working at home. A challenge is, like I said, I mean, you may hear my dog bark, you may see her actually walk in. It's challenging because most of my friends who are not Latino or people of color live on their own. And so I don't have my own space. Well, how I manage it is here, I'm in a public area to have this call, but usually when I am in class, I'm in my room and I lock the door. And they're knocking on it and I just ignore it, because if you ignore it, they'll eventually go away. So I just little things like that, and just making sure they understand, look, I'm in a call, like they can see you. This kind of helps. And I think it's gotten much better over time. But as Latinos, if you are like myself, we are multitaskers and we're very resilient. And this pandemic has been very difficult, but we do have the skill sets of resiliency, multitasking, and empathy, and to get through it and to thrive in it as well.
Yeah, that's a really great question, because at the beginning of the pandemic, my parents, I'm first generation, the oldest out of my mom, they don't understand working from home. If you're working from home, you're like, you're still here, they can still ask you questions, they can still ask you to translate that piece of paper that they've been holding on. So it's just keeping that communication open and letting them know, like, listen, from 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever your class schedule is, just letting them know that from this time you're in school, you want to focus, and in order for you to help them afterwards, you need to focus on school. And then just keeping that communication so they can know what's going on. I, for example, share my room with my sister. So I have my desk like in a little corner. I have it like stationed in the way that I like it. That way I can at least look at the wall and pretend like I'm in my office. So it's just creating that space that makes you feel comfortable, makes you feel like you're still in school. Because if you don't feel comfortable, then you won't give your full potential at school or whatever you're doing. So you at least want to make your mind believe like you're still in that place by setting it up how you used to have it or try to set it up. And then just blocking out the noise the best way you can, and just letting them know, because sometimes they don't really understand because they've never been through that situation. So it's just letting them know what's going on, and it's a little bit different, that even though you're here at home, you're not really here.
Very true. Elvitis, would you like to share?
Uh, yeah, so like Natalie and Serena mentioned, I also live at home. So I think that that's a little bit different than most of my classmates. I mean, in law school, most people like they're from out of state, a lot of them, or they just live on campus, or they live in their own apartments. I still live at home. I lived at home all through undergrad. And I'm also sharing a space with my brother and sister. So they are going to school at the same time that I'm going to school, which gets a little bit hectic when we're all trying to share the same connection, or like they have a question or something. But I think for me, it's been mostly about like, yes, learning to tune them out, learning to like set the boundaries, like, hey, at this time I have class. Google Calendar has been my best friend, like sharing it with my family, like, okay, this is our shared calendar. These are the times that I'm busy. And then also, time management, that's been a big thing. I feel like this is actually maybe better at time management, so that's one upside. Like I'm procrastinating less. I just turned in my first big assignment for one of my legal writing class last week, and it was like, oh my God, I wasn't freaking out last minute.
That's wonderful. I am very glad. And one of the things that resonate the most in this answer is how resilient us, our community, we are, how we adapt to change, and how we always trying to make the best out of it, out of like every hard situation. And I wanted to ask, were there any negative changes to your career because of the pandemic? Like for, in my case, I was doing an internship which I loved, and it was canceled in the middle of it. So I wanted to ask you, any of you, if there were any negative changes in how you adapt to it, how you made the best of this change.
Right. I left the firm sooner than what I had planned. So that was driven by COVID. It was on me, but I had left because of that. So that's one thing. And then another, I mean, really, it's difficult to watch the news. It's difficult. I've never known people who already died. I'm grieving, but you still have to move forward. Though that's a direct negative impact. On a larger scale with my schooling, we were all supposed to go to Argentina this summer and do a case study. I ended up doing it in my living room, and it wasn't the same type of bonding, and I wanted to go to Argentina. So, I mean, those sound petty, but really it's the experience that I'm partially paying for as well, and I'm not going to be able to have that, and I'm not going to be able to be with my friends on campus. I've only met them via Zoom. It's not the same. But that said, every failure or every problem has its opportunity. You just have to take a step back and look for it. And the opportunity is I'm able to get more done. I don't have to worry about commute time or travel time. So Google Calendar is also my best friend, and I suggest that it should be yours too if you don't have a method of keeping track of things. So there were its negatives, but I always try to look forward, and that's why I think I've been successful in my life despite personal setbacks that I faced growing up, is that I always say, what's the opportunity in this? And the opportunity is that I don't have commute time. And I've learned to be more resilient and learned to take care of myself a little better so I can move forward with these difficult challenges. And I would suggest that you guys, reach out with your own network and help each other too, because doing this tonight actually makes my night. I like helping you guys, and I want to see you grow, and that makes me feel better, and I'm going to sleep a little easier. So just helping out your community and taking care of yourself, I think, is one of the ways you can turn it around for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Albertus, were there any, I mean, starting law school in such a time must be hard, but there were any other changes that happened because of the situation?
Well, for me, besides starting law school and all of this, definitely I'm missing on certain like networking opportunities. Law school is very much about like, who do you know? You have to start looking for your summer internship for this summer, starting December. Well, you start applying starting December, and then you start looking for your second year internship starting next summer. And your second year internship usually turns into your job after law school. So it's like, if you don't know people that you would typically get. I do get to go in person to school twice a week. I take one class, and basically it's been just about like, we all show up like 30 minutes before class just so we can have a time to socialize with each other, which like, that's not something students typically do, but we're trying to make the best of the situation that we currently have. Also, I've been taking advantage of all the like online networking events. You want to get people's emails, you want to like get to know people. Like, this is the perfect time for us introverts, like, get to know people like on your turf, like the internet. This is where we live.
The wonderful tips, really. That I really appreciate all of this information. Not only were there any changes besides starting your work in this difficult situation that also were going to happen in a way and couldn't happen because of the pandemic.
I mean, the negative changes, they're negative. Like, it's pretty sad too. We were supposed to go to Deloitte University, which is a big training center that they have in Dallas, Texas. You weren't able to go to that. And then another thing is there was a lot of events, events like after work that I couldn't attend to because of this, and that probably could have made me like connect with other people in different departments, or connect like in a deeper level with people in my team. So the negative impact was not being able to have those events in order to get to know my team on a deeper level, which is something that I appreciate, instead of like thinking that they are robots most of the time. So that's one of the negative things that I wish couldn't happen. But I'm still grateful that I have a job. I feel like I started in a great time, because I was also thinking of starting my job in after the summer. So maybe if I would have taken that decision after the summer, maybe I wouldn't have a job. Well, I would have started in January, because a lot of people's deadline got pushed forward. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for mentioning that you're grateful, because I think that's something that we really have to be
Mhm.
mindful of, that we have to be grateful that we're here
Mhm.
and that most of us enjoy good health. And we also have to be grateful of the opportunities that came
Mhm.
out of this hard situation. Natalie, would you like to continue telling us if there were any good positive changes to your career that happened just because of the pandemic?
Um, I guess it helped me focus on my writing skills because I usually better at talking than on writing, so it really made me hone my writing skills and taking, let's say, an extra class online just to focus on my email writing skills, because now everything is through email, everything is through ping. So if you don't know how to put your point across through an email, you're the message is not going to go through. So it made me realize how I need to focus on my writing skills, and I just took this extra time to focus on that. And that's one of the big things, being that English is not my first language. I came to this country when I was 17, so this really was a time to like either it's now or never. So use this moment to like hone on those skills that you might not feel really strong in, and focus on those, and that way when things are back to normal, hopefully soon, you'll be able to like skyrocket in your career, skyrocket in your grades.
Oh, that's wonderful that you took advantage and polished your skills. What about you, Serena? Were there any changes that were positive?
Yes, actually, I would say I eat better. You know, like I'm at home. I know that sounds well weird, but you know, I've actually gotten healthier in this pandemic. It sounds counterintuitive, but it is true. Also, I can take more classes and do it well. I'm taking 18 credits of graduate work, and even though it's a lot, I don't feel as overwhelmed as I would have had I had my 2-hour commute. And on top of that, I'm able to volunteer. And on top of that, I am internship hunting because that's what we have to do for interim between the first year and the second year. And on top of that, I'm taking a certification for computer skills. I want to really go more into my programming because I'm concentrating in fintech. So I'm actually able to get a lot more done, and it's easier on my body rather than taking a 2-hour commute every day and really having that work. So actually, it has been um, good in some areas, and I'm very grateful for what I have because they can be worse. And so far, I still have a roof over my head. I never didn't have to go hungry, and I am in an excellent program. So I am extremely grateful. But I would say is that I can get a lot more done with half the strain that I normally would by having my commute.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, productivity is it's making it happen right now, and I'm very glad. Elbit, are there any positive changes to your career thanks to the COVID-19?
So I think that in a weird way, this has leveled the playing field a bit in law school. So a lot of people come into law school already with a large like legal network, and they have parents who are lawyers, siblings who are lawyers, who can sort of tell them what to expect. But this is something that no one could expect. Like even if your dad or your mom went to law school, they didn't go to law school in a pandemic. This is completely new. And I think that in a way, this has made us more empathetic. Like my section, we are very close. Like, yes, we're competing, but we want each other to succeed. And we're a little bit more understanding about people's circumstances.
Well, that's good to know. I think this is a wonderful way to put things, to see things in a different perspective. And I really like how you mentioned that you don't have the network because you're a first year student. And I wanted to continue by asking, how do you think the challenging situation will impact how the Latin community serve for job in the future?
So I think there's definitely going to be more of a focus on computer skills, online skills, and not just like technical stuff. I definitely think this, what we're doing here, Zoom, like learn this, like love it, live it, because you're going to be using this and you're going to be working with older people, especially if you go into the legal field. You will be working with like partners who are like in their 60s, who don't know how to work a computer, and they will ask you things like, oh, can you set up a meeting for us? Can you set up a conference call? So I think that this is teaching us some skills, like besides resiliency, of course, which like as Latinx people, we typically have, but like we are learning some like skills that are going to be extremely useful. And I feel like there's going to be more of a focus on these skills in like coming jobs. Like and as someone mentioned earlier, I'm not sure who it was, sorry, I think this is definitely going to make it a little bit more like it's going to make it more normal for work from home situations. So I think that's going to lower the barrier of entry for certain professions that like, oh, maybe I can't work in this field because the office is based there. I think employers are going to be a little bit more understanding when it comes to different distance circumstances.
Thank you. Serena, would you like to add up to this question?
So there's a lot of, I've noticed seminars on how to network online, which, I think that's a big opportunity, especially for students, because normally you wouldn't network as much online as you were in person, but now everyone's networking online. Now you get to actually have the opportunity to learn how to network and meet with people that you may not know directly, and you can learn how to make those introductions via online. And I'll give a personal anecdote. I reached out to an alumni from Fordham that was across the country. Normally I wouldn't have thought to reach out to him, but I wouldn't be meeting him in New York. I wouldn't be meeting for coffee. And it was totally normal to send an invite and say, can we Zoom? Can we Skype? And it was great. I got to expand my network. So now your network, it was always there where you could have expanded, but now it's a little bit more normal to talk to somebody who's not in the same country, not in the same time zone. So I think that poses a big opportunity, especially for students, to reach out to people who you normally wouldn't ask for coffee during normal circumstances, and to take advantage of those free seminars and opportunities of how to network so you can do it effectively and really prepare yourself so when you are really looking for a job or you are in your career ready, your network is a lot more robust than it would have been had you just stayed within this area. And I want to add to also to the point, you can apply to other places now within the country because most of it's remote. So there are more opportunities in a way. So I would say that it has its benefits if you really have the mindset to look for them. And if you play it wisely, you can actually come out on top.
Yeah, thank you for such a wonderful advice. We really appreciate that. Natalie, would you like to add it to that question?
Yeah, that was great. Just to piggyback out of Serena, this is the time for you to basically shine. If you're a person that you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody face to face, this is your time to show your face in a Zoom call. Practice your body language. Practice how you're going to talk. Even if you're Zoom, it's still a little bit different, like being in person, but at least you're showing your face. You're talking to a person, you're looking at their face, or they're showing your face. So that you should practice like communicating to somebody via Zoom call. Use this time to get certification in Excel and any other technical area that you may like. I know Coursera has a lot of training. So I know Latinos are usually like, I feel like Latinos are very comfortable, and sometimes we don't strive to like reach that potential that we know we have, just because we might feel like, oh, we're Latinos, we're first generation, da 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 da. But it is your time to take like those training, those classes, those YouTube videos, because once everything goes back to normal, you have a story now. You have a story to say that when during these times in coronavirus where everything was remote, I decided to take the power into my own hands and study this and this. That would be a great story, and that will set you apart from like a lot of people.
I agree. I think we have to make the narrative of what we did with this time and how this time changed and help us change the world. And that goes with my following question of, if you could please, Natalie, follow up with this. Given the current political climate, how will you encourage Latinx young youth to make their voice heard?
Ooh, this is a great question. I mean, this is the obvious. Vote. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, New York, it doesn't really matter. It's just a blue state," but it's a lot of things going to ballots, not only presidential. So the first thing you can do is voting. If you didn't vote in the past elections for the House, that was a great time to vote too. You may think it's not going to count. Oh, what's going to happen? Nothing's really going to happen. We're not going to make an impact. We will make an impact. So spreading, just voting whenever you can. Tell your families. I know a lot of Hispanics are really hesitant on voting. They don't really believe in that. So it's educating your family and letting them know. It's not only the like the surface. You have to go into the deep ideas. What are these people saying? What are the candidates saying that might cause a change? What's going to impact us? What do we want? So is giving them that knowledge into what's going on, because a lot of our families, they don't really keep up with um, what the politics is going on. They just know like this candidate, this candidate, we know this candidate, we know this candidate. But the more information to have, the better it is. And it's all about spreading the knowledge and like spreading it through social media and having your voice. So I think it's just like having a voice is going to be really important, and letting our family know.
I agree. Thank you.
Hmm.
Serena or Avidas, is there anything that you would like to add to this conversation?
Sure, I'd like to piggyback off of that. I actually got my ballot yesterday, my mail ballot. This is the first time I'm voting like this, and my sister and I and my mother, we all got our ballots. So that's one way. If you're eligible to, please vote, and don't. It's not just a presidential election that matters. It's also your congressional representatives. It's also your assembly person. It's also people within the municipal and state level that actually really impact your lives and are there for you if you reach out and really look into it. And if not, you don't feel that way, then vote. Besides that, if well, what if I can't vote? Then what? And you're not alone, and you're not on the side. You can still do your part by helping educating other family members who may not be sure of, or by doing volunteer and community work, by uplifting your community. I consider this by volunteering for me to express my voice. I want to see my fellow alumni and the next generation do well, and that to me is a way that I'm making my voice heard. Is hopefully whatever you out of what I say will help you in your future. So whatever opportunity there is to help somebody, if you cannot vote, I say take it and see it as that's the way that you're making your impact, because it really, I would hope, makes a difference.
Yeah, and I did want to say, for the ballots, be sure to like check the requirements. I know they're making it impossible, but check the requirements. Check all the boxes, so that way when you send it, you know everything is good to go.
Thank you. Alvidas, is there something you would like to add?
Sure. I mean, that's all fantastic. Yes, vote. I got my ballot today, so that's pretty exciting too. Um, and besides like the presidential stuff, next year is also a very important election for New York, just putting it in your radar. Most of our city council is time barred from running again. So we have a ton of new candidates who have the opportunity to run. So keep an eye on that and keep an eye on your local elections. Besides that, I also think if you want to make your voice heard, start at home. Like talk to your family, to your friends, to your circle. Don't be afraid to have challenging conversations. I think a lot of times we don't want to make things uncomfortable, so we'll avoid having things that were conversations that were like, oh no, but that's, I don't like talking politics. It's like, this is not a year to avoid talking politics. And as a former social media manager, I'd be remiss if I don't mention this, but keep an eye on the content that your older relatives are consuming. I know that a lot of our older relatives are on Facebook and WhatsApp, and WhatsApp especially, a lot of people don't know it is a barrel of misinformation. So it feels weird to like be like, oh, this is my mother, this is my grandmother, and I'm checking what she's looking at. But a lot of times you can just sit down, have a conversation about the type of things that they are like the fake news most of the time. And you'll be like, no, actually, this is this, and slowly like help them understand.
Thank you, all three of you. These are powerful roles, and we really appreciate you sharing it. I do have a final question for Veris. I want to know if there was any particular reason why you decided to go into law school, and what was the hardest part of the application, being that you're a first generation student.
So the reason I chose to go to law school mostly is because I'm a first generation student. I think that the law is extremely outdated in certain parts. It's stale. It can use fresh perspectives. If you are from a background that is traditionally like underrepresented in the legal field, everyone will try to tell you don't go to law school, but it's like our voices are needed. Like it doesn't matter what type of law you want to do, whether you want to go into politics, like they need the different perspectives. The law needs a little challenging every once in a while. And then there's the fact that it's extremely complicated for people to maneuver certain systems, purposely so sometimes. And there's a need for good people to come in and just sort of like, no, this is what this means. This is what you need to do. In terms of the application process, like I'm not gonna lie, it's extremely difficult, but it's not impossible. For me, the hardest part was definitely the personal statements. I think there's always the fear when you're writing something like that. It's like, am I including enough, or am I telling too much? Is this what they want to hear? Like there's the little bit of imposter syndrome when you feel like you always feel like there's more deserving candidates. But it's like, no, first of all, because you're not every other candidate, you are yourself, your background, it matters. So include that. Like in my personal statements, they were totally about my background, about how my experiences shaped my desire to go into the law and what I felt I could bring to it.
Thank you so much for opening up and sharing this powerful experience with us. My next question is for Natalie. Being a first generation student, what is one piece of advice that you would give us to be as successful as yourself? And what is one professional development book you would recommend to students looking to better themselves?
Yeah, one piece of advice of, well, one out of a lot. Um, so it's being able to never settle. I know we have an idea of like, oh, once we reach this position, this is the position that is like, once we reach, a say, for example, manager, that's like the top of the top. Never settling for that. If you know there's a senior manager, why don't you go for the senior manager? So it's never settling for less, because I know that's something that we Latinos often do. And we're already determined and resilient. We're coming from another country. Our parents are coming from another country to a brand new country that they don't know the language. So it's honing like that experience and that background, and knowing that if they could do it, then you can apply to that company that you think you might not have an opportunity. You can take that course that you think that is going to be really hard and you won't be able to succeed. So it's putting yourself out there and taking on that risk, because even if you do fail, you know that you at least did it. You won't regret the decision that you made, because you know that you still tried and you tried your hardest. So it's never settling for anything than less that you know that you truly can. And due to that is why I suggest this book to everybody. I love this book. It's Outliers from Malcolm Gladwell. It's about giving that hard work, being persistent, and knowing that hard work equals success. Like, that formula, well, this formula that I live by is hard work plus opportunity equals success. So if you put in that work, if you put in that hard work, once that opportunity comes, that's when you become successful. So it's always being ready, always being prepared, and that preparedness come from hard work and giving that 10,000 hours, for example, that they say in the book. So that's a book that I really love.
Thank you. We really appreciate that, especially us, the readers. My final question is for Serena. We wanted to know what were the factors that you considered when you decided to move from Morgan Stanley to American Express, and what led you to leave American Express to go study a full-time master's degree?
Okay. I loved Morgan Stanley. I will start off and say that my 2 years there were incredible. But when you get to a certain point, you really have to think, where do I want my career to go? And I worked in a division that's called legal and compliance. It's a function of risk in a way, and it's combating regulatory risk. Usually senior managements were attorneys, And at first, right after undergrad, I thought I was going to want to go to law school. My boss was attorney, her bosses were attorneys. I really got to know them well, see their work. I knew after 2 years, this is not what I want. And the opportunity to develop the skills and be in an area where I wanted, which was a front office role at American Express. It was very mathematical. The opportunity opened itself, and I went with it. I liked both firms. I liked the work at Amex as well. It was much more quantitative. It was the front office, so I really got to see where the numbers were going. And I enjoy the nature of the work, but overall, after some time, I said, I want to get my master's, and the only way to do it is, for me to do it now. I right now in my life, I can do that. And I like to do things well, and I like to make sure I put my all into it. And the job I had at American Express was great, but ultimately to do both, especially now with COVID, I wouldn't have done as well. So I went off to take my master's, really because I'm thinking long term. So I think that's really why I went, but it took years to really come to that. And I think what led me to it is also a lot of conversations. I didn't make this decision in a vacuum. I consulted with my former boss, and I said, "What do you think I'm geared for? You know me very well personally and with my work. What is it?" And she goes, "You'd be a good lawyer, but you're very mathematical. I really explore that avenue." And I did, and that's how I ended up with being in this program. And I'm very happy with what I'm learning, and hopefully I'll be able to really stay on track and go to where I want to be, which we all do, right? So that's why I would say for you guys, how do you apply it? Have a lot of conversations. Make sure you ask for advice. Don't go flat out and ask someone you don't know for a referral, like at least not in the first conversation, but get their advice. Listen, I'm on this track. What do you think? And really that's how you grow your network and you build upon it, and how you can make wise decisions for your future, especially a big investment like grad school.
Thank you so much for sharing that, especially reminding us the importance of having the conversation and listening, like we're all doing right now. We're listening, and eventually we will go and question what is best for our career. So thank you, all three of you, for sharing this meaningful piece of advice. And we're actually running out of time. We have 3 minutes. I want to open the floor. If there's any students with any questions, you're welcome to either type it on the chat or unmute yourself, however you feel comfortable, but this is your time.
No questions yet.
There's a question. There's a question on the chat from Jacqueline de la Cruz.
I see it. I don't know if this was directed to someone, but I'm just gonna read it. What classes do you recommend on those sites like Coursera?
Mm-hmm. I think it all depends on what you want to do. Coursera, it's mainly technical and mainly like financial stuff. Well, what I've seen because that's usually what I research. But it all depends what you like. I usually go for like financial modeling, a lot of Excel. So it really all depends on what you like. But those are the ones that I usually take, and their courses given by schools.
Next question is from Fabriar. What courses would you recommend to prepare for the LSAT?
So the LSAT isn't really like anything that you can learn to take like with undergrad courses. It's a very confusing exam, and frankly, it's useless. Don't think that it's gonna that it's a good like example of how you're gonna do in law school. It's not. But if you are looking for prep courses, for me, I did Khan Academy has like a free LSAT, basically like curriculum. Like there's maybe 10 practice exams, and they break down the questions, how to do it. The test is all about gaming, how to do it. And then for prep books, I like the super prep a lot. I recommend the game section one because that's the section where you really can have the most improvement. Once you learn how to master those questions, you can have like shoot up in points. The other sections, reading comprehension and logic, it's a little bit more like just practicing and trying to get them right. But the game section is really where you have the chance to improve.
No worries. So the next question comes in from Imina. At one point in your undergrad, did you realize what career path you wanted to pursue?
I would say that was during my junior year. I actually went to a seminar hosted by Morgan Stanley, and I said, oh, wow, this is actually a function I'm really interested in. And I kept going. And I went to another one. I went to another. And finally, after a while, they recognized me and I applied, I interviewed. But it was, I would say, go to those seminars because that's where the actual professionals are telling you about their day-to-day and what their function does and what type of personality traits thrive in that environment. And it was in that where I was like, you know what, this is it. At least this is where I want to go for my first step in a career. And there was one question asked earlier I do want to add to: make sure your Excel skills, especially if you want to go into banking or finance or this industry, make sure your Excel skills are advanced because that will save you a lot of headache and it'll save you a lot of time and make sure it'll actually improve your accuracy. So Excel, if you're wondering what should I take, take Excel if you don't feel comfortable with it, and PowerPoint and Word. Make sure that's stellar. And then you can move on. And one way you can network is actually ask people who are professionals, even during these panels, what do you recommend? And they can give you a better insight of what you should look at.
I also did want to mention that in Coursera, companies also give courses about financial modeling or anything that they may do. I know PwC has a lot of them. So it's a really good site.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Nobody else is asking questions. That's pretty much it.
Okay, so I think we're done with the time. So I want to thank the speakers one more and give back the mic to Professor Golub so she can properly dismiss us.
Thank you. This is a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Marco. Thanks to everyone, and thank you to the panelists. This has been such an incredible experience for me to listen to your advice, also because it reminds me of what makes Baruch students special, and it's what made you as alumni. Really, it's fantastic to hear about your experience and how open you are also to wanting to see everyone succeed. So thanks to everybody. I inadvertently earlier put something in the chat. I wanted to let you know that our next event is actually tomorrow from ISLA. We have we're partnered with the Baruch Performing Arts Center and sponsored a program of music in celebration of Latinx Heritage Month by Stick and Bow, which is a duo of marimba and cellos playing an all Latin American program. And I am also hosting a meet and greet with the artists. We really would love Baruch students and alumni to show up to give them a warm welcome and to ask them about, we're gonna have a conversation about Latin American history, politics, and music. And that's tomorrow. The link is in the chat. Also wanted to thank Daniela also. She's, as I mentioned, that she's the coordinator of student affairs for ISLA. She has created our presence on Instagram. So please, follow her and us on Instagram. Danielle, can you put put it in the chat, please? So we have some events coming up in October, and hopefully you'll hear about them because we would love to see you there. But just want to thank our partners and thank our speakers, and thank you so much. And thank you for joining us, everyone who's here tonight. Thank you very much to the organizers, and thanks for inviting me. Take care.
Thank you for having me. Have a good night.
Thank you
you,
so
everyone.
much.
Have a good night.
Bye, good night, thank you.
And I put my email in the chat, guys, if anybody has any questions about law school or the process.
Right. And
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I will take
reach
advantage
out to me
of
on
that.
LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn for any of you who want to pursue more questions or any other comments. It was my pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Wishing everyone the best of luck.
Bye.
Bye.
Hope everyone's well.